isn't working. TVI goes to T Street, the street where every householder is out of work. People like Vince Baker, selling his fishing rod to buy cigarettes. People like June Wild, with 10 children, seeking help over a huge electricity bill. People like Mick Searson, aged 42, giving up hope of working again. Tees Street, Birkenhead, on Merseyside, a region classified as one of the most depressed in Europe. But Tees Street has a special claim to fame. No adult over 20 has a regular job, apart from Danny Doyle, who's 35 and blind. He works in the Unemployment Benefits Office, an ironic twist of fate.
Yeah, I suppose there is with so many people in this particular area being unemployed and me having a job. Really, you might say if they had a job, there'd be no need for me to have one.
6 years ago, Danny's father was made redundant from the shipyards. The Doyle family live at number 5 T Street. Danny's 3 brothers are part of the street pattern of unemployment.
You've been looking for jobs for so long that you do in the end, you give up, you know. It just gets so depressing. Anybody gets a joke, mentions a job, it's a joke. Nobody gets a job. So the kids saying this, obviously they're not growing up with any work ethic to follow or anything. To them it's normal to be out of work, to be just around the house, and to be going down to sign on each week. So, there's no future for them at all.
Refuse collection day in T Street, and a reminder for 2 of Danny Doyle's brothers of the last time they had a weekly pay packet. 2 years ago, Stephen and Noel were bin men when the local council ran the service.
Well, it was sold off to a private enterprise firm called Waste Management. Took over in June 1983.
Did a lot of jobs go then?
Oh yeah, a couple of hundred.
So what happened to you after that?
Well, we had a few bob from a superannuation, so we decided instead of blowing it, and we couldn't get a job anyway, try and make a start on a market stall.
The brothers were helped in their market stall business by a grant of £40 a week each for a year under a government scheme.
Birkenhead was alright at first. Well, we thought it was alright because it was our first market, obviously, but after a while you get to hear of other markets and that, and you go to them, and after you finally get on, you're much better.
They were selling glass, china, fancy goods. But it took them most of their government-assisted year to get the hang of the business. 9 months ago, that year came to an end and their money ran out.
How do you see the future? Because you ought to have quite long working lives ahead of you at your age. When you look ahead, what do you see?
At least a few more years of signing on.
I think my next job would be a lollipop man. At 65.
In Birkenhead, 20 years ago, there were over 14,000 jobs in the shipyards. Now there are 1,300. In those days, male unemployment of 45% in the area was unthinkable. Now it's fact. Number 3, T Street. 39-year-old Vince Baker is short of money for cigarettes. He's taking his fishing rod, which cost him £3, to the shop where he bought it to sell it back. He was a building labourer. He's married with 2 children. He's been unemployed for most of the last 10 years.
Well, I can't see how I can see any prospect, because all I see around me is places shutting down.
People sometimes say that people who are out of work don't try hard enough to find work. What would you say to that?
They get to a stage where they don't try hard enough because they just get chewed off with it.
How do you see your future then?
Me? I can see myself being on the dole for the rest of my life.
To walk down T Street is to walk through a small society where conventional hopes and ambitions have largely been abandoned. On this side, a man of 54, a former dock diver and building charge hand, who's been unemployed for 7 years. He's got 5 children. On this side, a former rigger in a ship repair yard who's bringing up 4 children on his own since his wife left him recently. He's been unemployed for 8 years. And on it goes into the next generation. On this side, a father jobless for 8 years with 3 children of working age, none of whom have found work since leaving school. Growing up in T Street nowadays means coming to terms with aimlessness. Particularly those with children in their charge must also come to terms with the rules, regulations and pressures of living on welfare. One man who tries to help is Nick Warren. He's a solicitor employed by a Birkenhead charity to give free advice on social security, unemployment benefit, housing, on any one of 100 problems that may suddenly be serious. This call is to number 15 T Street, to June Wilde, a divorcee with 4 of her 10 children at home, unemployed for 10 years.
Mrs. Wilde?
Yes.
My name's Nick Warren. I understand you're in a bit of trouble with the lecky.
Yes.
Is this convenient?
Yes, yes.
The electricity bill June Wilde has received is startling.
What's the electricity bill? £1,000.
Let's see. 200 quid for this quarter.
Yeah.
And 900...
That was for the July quarter. That was the main one that will...
All of it?
Yeah. 900 for 1 quarter bill.
What would your ordinary electricity bill be?
£74. That was the highest one, £106.
And how do you normally pay for it?
I save £10 a week with the Social Security voluntary.
Do they know you're on supplementary?
Yeah.
How long
You see, they said if I didn't pay the £54 within 7 days, they were going to cut me off.
This was Nick Warren's first encounter a few weeks ago with the mystery of June Wilde's extraordinary bill. He's still trying to resolve it.
I don't know what happens when the next £54 due.
One of June Wilde's sons, 18-year-old Robbie, has been working in a scrap metal yard for 2 months. It's taken him 2 years to get a job.
I tried and tried and tried for ages, and eventually it got me one, but I've seen people there trying for 2 years and they still haven't got one.
Worn-out hulks are broken up for scrap in an area where great ships were once proudly built. If some of Robbie's friends now feel themselves to be on the scrap heap, it's not for want of trying to do better.
I've known quite a few of my mates to go down to the job centre every single day, and all they've got is interviews. They've got to be either 18 or the other jobs you've got to be brainy. You know what I mean? And some of them, you know, they're not daft. Some of them have got brains, but they just can't get the jobs.
Robbie Wilde and 2 other T Street teenagers are working, together with Danny Doyle, the blind man. But out of 32 households, no householder has a job. And in nearly every house, there is at least 1 man or woman of working age without work. A total of 38 unemployed. From number 28 T Street, Mike Jenkins, aged 34, an electrician, married, with 4 children, has been offered a chance of reducing that total by 1. But he's got a long way to go. Unemployed for 2 years, he's on his way to be interviewed for a job at the Atomic Energy Research Establishment at Harwell in Oxfordshire.
How important is this job to you, Mike, if you get it?
Very important, really, to get away from this area where there's no work for the children in later years when they grow up.
What do you think your chances are?
Well, as good as the next, I would think.
No such hope is likely for the householder at number 10, 42-year-old Mick Searson.
What do you see your chances now in terms of the rest of your working life?
Very poor.